Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of Cooking with Natalie. Today we're making a Cuban-style picadillo, and this is one of the several versions of this recipe that I make. Picadillo is traditionally made with ground meat, but today I'm going to be using a combination of textured vegetable protein or TVP and mushrooms as the meat replacement. For this recipe you will need 1 cup of TVP. I recommend using the smaller sized TVP like the one that Bob's Red Mill makes, but the only one I was able to find in my area was this one that's a little bit chunkier, which I found at a Mexican grocery store. Still, if this is the only kind that you can find, it will work just fine. You'll need 1 cup of a no beef broth or a vegetable broth of any kind. I use the no beef broth recipe from the Happy Herbivore cookbook, and I'll link it down below in the description in case you want to check it out. But you don't have to use it. You can use your favorite vegetable or beefy broth in this recipe. I also mixed in a bit of vegetable better than bouillon in the broth as well, just to make it a little more flavorful. But again, you can use whatever you like here. And if you want to print out the recipe, I'll put the link to our website in the description down below. So you'll also need 8 ounces of minced mushrooms. I used baby bella mushrooms, but you can use white button mushrooms as well. I like the texture and the umami flavor that the mushrooms give this dish, but you can certainly omit the mushrooms and double up on the TVP. And besides the TVP, you'll also need a small medium onion that has been diced. I prefer using a white or yellow onion, but on this day I only had purple, which worked just fine. I'll also be using half a diced bell pepper. You can use any color. And 2 to 4 tablespoons of chopped Spanish olives, 4 to 6 cloves of garlic minced, about 4 ounces of tomato sauce, a tablespoon or 2 of tomato paste depending on how tomatoey you like your food, half a teaspoon of dried oregano, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cumin or more if you are a cumin lover, a 1/4 teaspoon of sweet paprika, and a 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1 bay leaf, a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar to balance out the acidity of the canned tomato, and salt to taste depending on how salty your broth is. I'm using a 1/4 teaspoon here. The first thing I'm going to do is prep my TVP by pouring the hot broth over the TVP bits. Make sure that the broth is hot, which helps the TVP to rehydrate and soften up. Set this aside for about 15 minutes, and in the meantime you can prep the rest of the ingredients. I first prepped my onions, peppers, garlic, and olives, which I didn't show on camera because I just thought it wasn't necessary, but I did want to show you how I minced the mushrooms. You can always mince the mushrooms by hand, with a knife and a chopping board, but it's definitely more time consuming that way, so I like to use my food processor instead. If you have one, I highly recommend it to save yourself some time. So after rinsing the dirt off of the mushrooms, I simply place them inside of the food processor and pulse them until they're minced. And you don't want to overdo it here, because if not, it's going to turn into mush. This is what you want to see. So now that all of my ingredients are ready, chopped and prepped and minced, I'm going to heat up a pan on medium heat. And for today's recipe, I'm going to be using about a tablespoon of olive oil to saute my veggies, because my husband Ricky, he prefers it this way. But I honestly think that it's not necessary at all. I don't really think it adds much to the dish. You can definitely water saute the vegetables if you prefer. So if you want to see how I water saute, you can check out my jackfruit ropa vieja video, which I'll link in the description down below if you want to see how I do that. So I'm going to add the onions and the bell peppers once the pan and the oil are hot. And then after a couple of minutes, I add the garlic. After another 2 more minutes, I add the mushrooms and I stir it well to combine. And then I simply cover it and let the water cook out of the mushrooms and the vegetables just finish cooking. Just checking it every once in a while, just to make sure that nothing sticks to the bottom of the pan or burns. And once the mushrooms have cooked down, and you can add the TVP. I strained out the excess liquid out of mine. And at this point, I'm also going to add all the spices except for the salt and the sugar. I'm going to add the tomato sauce and the tomato paste, the olives, and the bay leaf. I'm going to stir this to combine and cover it, and just stir it occasionally to avoid sticking as well. So you only need to cook it for another 6 or 7 more minutes until all of the liquids have evaporated and it looks like this. And your picadillo is done. You can serve this alongside of rice and plantains like I've done here. Or you can use this in any recipe that calls for cooked minced meat. You can use it in a lasagna, in tacos, burritos. You can bake it into an empanada or pour it over baked potatoes. So let me know in the comments down below, what would you use this recipe for? What ideas do you have to use this recipe? And if you think this looks tasty, hit the like button. Also, I'll be putting out a lentil picadillo version in the future for those of you who cannot eat soy or for those who want an even healthier option. So if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Again, I'm going to be including the link for the blog if you want to print out the recipe in the description down below. I hope that you enjoyed watching this recipe. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.